it's very good to be with you and the American Chambers of Commerce across the world. But to your question, it's already had a significant impact. This new equality of opportunity initiative that we launched was one first about listening and learning. As you know, we convene over 500 business organizations across the country, including state and local chambers, trade associations, corporations, to have a real dialogue about equality or inequalities in America. And from listening and learning, we've launched a real comprehensive, aggressive initiative to address some of the key issues in America around education, entrepreneurship, unemployment, criminal justice, et cetera. And the impact has been tremendous. What we've been seeing over the last several months since we launched this initiative in June is that state and local chambers at the local level are now convening. They're now formulating agendas to address these issues at the local level, and that's exactly what we want. We understand there's work to be done nationally in Washington with members of Congress, but it's equally important that these issues are addressed at the state house and the city halls across the country, and we're already seeing great progress.
Rick, maybe I could pick up on that. I mean, diversity and inclusion is not a new topic, but why is it different today than it was, say, 5-10 years ago? Why do you see the corporate community taking it up in a different way than 5 years ago? And what does that mean for us and our organization, but also, again, how that will play into the workforce and make a big difference? I want to get into small, medium-sized businesses, but let's start with the broader corporate community first.
Well, listen, I mean, the reality is that, these issues of lack of diversity or inequalities in America have existed for years. I think the urgency of now is found in sort of what we witnessed playing out across America and quite frankly, across the world, whether it's protests or social unrest, the unfortunate murder of George Floyd, which resonated across the world, has placed these issues front and center. But this is nothing new to the business community. We also understand it from the perspective of business and industry that, yes, there is a moral case to address these issues of equality, but there's also a business case. We know that our workforce is changing, and companies that invest in diversity and equity and inclusion inside their companies to make sure they have diverse workforces, that they're inclusive, will be more competitive. And that's what the data suggests. Companies like McKinsey and studies all across America have proven that companies that are more diverse are more successful, are more profitable. And so this is really about the business case. As you know, we have a partnership with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, one of the leading foundations that's impactful, not just in the United States, but across the world. And they've done some outstanding research on what they call the business case for racial equity. And it basically says that if we close these inequality gaps, if we do more around diversity, that our economy grows by $8 trillion. So this is about the business case. It's about the economic impact. When we address these issues, it's not just good for minorities in America. It's not just good for society. It's good for our economy and our competitiveness.
When you were at Commerce, Rick, you interfaced a lot with the AmChams, the American Chambers all over the world, when you were working for Gary Locke as Secretary of Commerce in those days. In this job, you've been more focused on building up alliances inside the United States, and you've done a great job with the help of others in the organization, including our federation. Now you're speaking to a worldwide AmCham audience. Why should they feel attached to this initiative? You've explained, but give them a sense of what are the 4 or 5 things we're trying to do and how those elements relate to some of their work, perhaps in their countries.
Yeah, you bet. I think just as important as the issues of Myron is the idea of convening. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is a megaphone, and one of our greatest assets is our ability to convene, to bring companies together, to bring communities together. And there's something to learn about that. Whether no matter what country you're in, is how can the American Chambers, the AmChams, be that hub that brings the spokes together? that brings communities together in any given country. And I think we've proven that. As I mentioned, when we launched this, it was first about listening. And I think that's where we start, is how do we listen to each other and bring each other around a table together. And then that listening leads to more understanding, and it's understanding that can then begin to drive issues that matter. And so I think the model one is something that certainly can be replicated in countries around the world. And then secondly, thinking about what are the priority issues that might be relevant in any particular country. Again, here in the United States, with our Equality of Opportunity Initiative, we're focusing on education because we understand what that means for our workforce. We're addressing entrepreneurship. How do we grow more minority-owned enterprises and small businesses so that they can contribute to our local communities? Criminal justice, and there are other issues that we will add to our agenda down the road. But determining what issues would resonate with the people, with the citizens, with the workforce in any given country, we think we have a template that AmChams across the world can utilize.
Rick, you're an advocate for minority-owned businesses and SMEs more broadly, and you have throughout your career been an advocate. If you think about the United States as representing 5% of the world consumer base and 95% outside, of course, the AmCham community represents that broader community of consumers, and the companies they represent want to sell to them. So how do we help maybe bring a lot of minority-owned businesses into the international space, working through the AmCham community? We've talked about this a lot, and one of the reasons we want to do this program is we do think there's a gateway to the AmCham community that we can help facilitate and partner with. So some thoughts about that, minority-owned businesses that you brought to the table, and we've talked about, who really do want to go global and that they want to go past Canada and Mexico as trading partners. How do we help them? And how do the AmChams play a role in this?
You bet. You referenced my experience at the United States Department of Commerce, which quite candidly was my first peek into sort of the global marketplace, the world. And after the inauguration of President Obama, I was once the highest ranking official there as we were ramping up our staff. And within just a few weeks, they told me I had to lead a trade mission to India. And of all of the tools and agencies and resources I started learning about, one of the first was this group called AmChams. And I later recognized, as I travel around the world, leading trade missions and participating in various global forums, the tremendous value and asset of the American Chambers of Commerce. And they are extremely important in how we can connect small and minority enterprises to the global world. I mean, to the 95% of consumers, as we all know, who live outside our borders. And so, we've been working diligently here at the U.S. Chamber to create a stronger network with all of the minority business organizations and build a network of minority enterprises, whether it's the Minority Business Development Agency at the Department of Commerce, it's the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Asian American Chambers, the African American Chambers. We think there's tremendous opportunity for minority firms to export and do business around the world. There's a lot of research that shows that actually minority firms are more likely to export because there is a cultural context. When you think of the diaspora, I mean, there's tremendous connectivity. I think our challenge is to really strengthen that framework. And I think the American Chambers can play a very valuable role at being a portal, of being a pipeline to countries, helping to understand how to do business abroad, thinking about corporate supply chains, global opportunities and supply chains, and just education and understanding, because these American Chambers are front and center in countries, and they know how to do this. And I look forward to working closer with the American Chambers to create more opportunities for minority businesses here in America.
Rick, I think that's an invitation to all the AmChams to give us their thoughts about where they want to play and how they want to be engaged, whether it's supply chain issues, whether it's market intelligence, because what do you think the market size is? What do you think the market size is of these minority-owned businesses that are still trying to feel their way through the international arena that could be tapped into if we're effective? Any sense?
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, there are millions, obviously, of minority firms here in America. But just think about the Black-owned businesses. Let's just talk about that universe. There are 2.6 million Black-owned companies here in the United States. Arguably, most are small companies. They're sole proprietorships. They, one, two, three, four employees. But they want to learn more about how to do business abroad. They want that market intelligence. They want to figure out how do they sell their products and services around the world. And they want to understand how global trade works. And it's something that we got to build on. But the interest and the desire, based on my conversations and certainly the research, shows there's tremendous opportunity. We've done this with the International Affairs Division here at our chamber, working with your teams, where we brought minority businesses into the chamber just to have roundtable conversations. One example I talk about a lot is a business roundtable that we did with the U.S. Chamber Qatar program. When one of my last visits before the pandemic was to Doha for the Doha Forum, and I had the chance to sit down with the AmCham there in Doha, and we talked about amazing opportunities to create connectivity between minority firms and the AmChams as a pipeline for minority firms to understand these markets and to hopefully do business. And then the other side I'll just tangentially mention is, as I hope that as we move beyond the pandemic or even a virtual world that we now live in, as the leaders of AmChams come to the United States, I mean, I would love to be able to convene minority business roundtables so that they can build stronger ties directly with these companies here in the United States. So I think the opportunities are limitless because these companies, they want to grow, they desire to grow. When they grow, again, they're not just creating jobs, but they can be more impactful within their own communities and bring a global perspective and global view to the communities in which they live, work, and they play.
Well, Rick, you hit a number of themes there. I want to just pick up on one in particular. We're the Chambers of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber, we're advocacy organizations. That's our strength, right? In the United States, when you think about the work we're doing on tax, regulatory policy, trade policy, immigration, and of course, all the work we're doing under the EOI initiative at the federal and state level, whether it's justice reform, education, entrepreneurship, and in other areas. I will hear a multinational voice on these issues in a few minutes, but I want your perspective of, do you think that if we can tap more effectively into minority-owned businesses, that we can get them to be an advocate when it comes to trade policies? Because we're now at a very, very infection moment where this country is divided between those who believe in globalization and those who are running away from it. And we're seeing that in our trade policy conversations, immigration policy conversations. I think we need to build more alliances, build more understanding of why we need to stay globally connected, the fact that it's inevitable with technology, but what does it mean for societies? And some feel left behind. How do you think minority-owned businesses will play into this place as they continue to grow and develop and begin thinking even more expansively about international partnerships?
Oh, they can play an incredibly valuable role. We've already actually proven that. When we were advancing USMCA, for example, we're able to convene all of the heads of the minority business organizations, like the U.S. Hispanic Chamber and the African American Chambers and Asian Chambers. And, they were front and center, involved in not only signing on with us on letters to members of Congress, but front and center in advancing this dialogue across their member companies and constituencies. And again, they have tremendous voice outside of the United States because a lot of these companies are global in nature because they of their diaspora and other relationships abroad. And so they can be tremendous voices, not just in the United States, but also as voices inside countries. So, I think that the opportunities are enormous. They want to be involved in trade. They want to communicate more effectively with their members of Congress on issues of international trade. And we know it can work, and we're looking to work with you in the months and years to come to do even more.
So Rick, before we transition to Marjorie Chorlins and Wanda Bryan Hope and you on a panel conversation that I hope all of you will enter with questions that you have and comments and reflections about the conversation that Rick and I have had, but also what you hear in the panel coming up. Please do raise your questions. But Rick, final point to you. If there's 3 or 4 things that you would hope the AmChams get from this conversation and can think about in the days and weeks ahead in terms of partnering with us, but also their own work, what would they be?
I think one is, as you think about equality of opportunity, however you define that within your countries, our model, we hope you will utilize, listen and learn, be that convener, which the U.S. Chamber and the American Chambers are uniquely positioned to do, is to be a convener. And in doing so, we can lead and be very impactful. And we're proving that with this equality of opportunity initiative. Secondly, as you think about pipelines to bring more minority and SMEs into your ecosystem of the AmChams, we believe there's enormous opportunity. And then finally, as you think about your programming here in the United States or abroad, I hope that you will be inclusive of the work that we're doing, because we want to be a real value-added tool. We think there's tremendous opportunity globally for our minority enterprises here in America to not only do business and export and sell their products abroad, but to be voices and be megaphones for the work that you're doing. And we hope you'll view us as such. And I look forward to working with you.